Now we've got, whenever you're cutting vegetable, the next thing, we've got beautiful produce. Like Mark said, everything is produce driven. Beautiful little zucchini. I wish I could brag that this was out of my garden, but it's not. Then we want to think about safety. So I've cut a little square bit off. That means I've got rid of some of the skin, but now I've got somewhere stable to cut. If I try and cut here, it's going to roll around. Chances are I'm going to cut my fingers off, and I don't want to do that. I didn't bring any band-aids with me. So I've cut the bottom off, it's flat. Then we can just slice through and it's not going to move. When I get to this point, then I might put my fingers either side of the knife, and again, it's nice and safe. So now we just cut it through again. So we've got our strips and cut into what we call battens. And then we're just going to turn it around and we're going to cut that now into a dice. So it looks fancy the way a chef cuts up. It's really just about technique. It's really just about keeping your tip of the knife on the board, keeping your fingers out of the way, and really it becomes a machine. You could chop all day and you wouldn't even need to look at it. I don't advise that, but it's about the technique. So for this dish, it's a Sicilian Caponata. So I don't know if you've heard of ratatouille. You've all seen the film, one of my favourite films. And ratatouille is a traditional French vegetable stew, for want of a better word. Layman inside. So the caper is actually a little flower. And again, that grows in the Mediterranean. And it's a bush, quite a hard, sturdy bush. And when the flowers come out, they pick them in vinegar or salt. So if you get the salted one, I changed the recipe originally from salted to pickled because I started to get into this acid thing and adding acid into the food rather than salt. We all add salt to our food because that livens up our food, but try adding acid to it and less salt and you'll find that you get some really amazing flavours. The other acid in this dish is going to be some olives. So these are, they're just a green olive, and the Sicilian style is actually add a little bit green colour to them when they pickle them. So we're going to add those. We have got probably the most important part of the dish is the onion. So I've just got a couple of small onions. Now onion is really important to me for cooking, particularly Western style food or European style food, because we want to cook it till it's really soft. And all of the acids turn into sugars and all the natural sugars start to caramelize and the whole thing gets sweet and yummy, and that's what is going to bring out the big flavour in this ratatouille. So we've cut our onion there, and what I did is I leave the root on so that when I'm cutting, slicing up towards there and slicing that way, I've got something solid that's holding it together, rather than if I was trying to slice an onion that didn't, and then it all starts falling apart on me. So these are some of the little tricks. You just hold the roots, you cut to the root, and then you slice it on. And again, I've made a flat base, so it's sitting flat. And like Mark said, we don't waste anything. These little bits of onions, we'd throw the root part in the bin, but the rest of the onion will go into a stock or a sauce or something like that. So I've got my little pan here. I've got a little bit of olive oil, and I'm going to put my onions in without that nasty little root bit that went in there. And I am just going to cook that over a low heat. So the best form of heat control you've got is to move it away from the heat. I've popped that on, it started to get too sizzly, too brown, and the risk of leaving it on the heat is going to start to burn the onions. I want this to cook a little bit slower, and then all of the juices come out, then the juices start to caramelize rather than just burning or searing the outside of the onion. So we might pop this onto Mark's little grill there. I've also got a grill plate on here. This is one of my favourite things for cooking on at home. So it means I don't have to go outside and light the big barbecue. I've got a little griddle plate. I just put it on my little stove top at home because these days we're eating a whole lot less protein as well. So I used to light the grill up and put 2 kilos of meat on. Now we're doing 100 grams of meat with a nice vegetable dish. So hopefully eating a little bit smarter. So using the griddle plate, that's going to give me the char grill look and also a bit of the flavour, because this is nicely seasoned. It's not that I haven't washed it, it's just that it's got, you know, natural, it's got a little bit of character to it. It's got some lovely flavours in my pan, so that's good to go. I've got another pan on here. So I'm just waiting for my onions to cook. And normally I would let these go for about 10 or 15 minutes and really cook them out. We are going to just slice some garlic. So again, I've cut it in half, so I've got a flat piece. And that way it's not rocking around. I can nicely cut it, slice it, and it's nice and safe. I want to slice this garlic nice and thin. Rather than mincing it, I actually want the little pieces of garlic in there, because garlic, when it's cooked properly, again, is nice and soft and sweet. Okay. So that's starting to come together nicely. Just knock it over there off the heat a little bit. Then, once these have sort of got soft and translucent, we could put the tomato in there. I've just pre-chopped the tomato up. It's really, really ripe tomato. So this is another beauty of this dish, is that we're using the vegetables that are in season and they're at their best. So the tomatoes are nice and ripe, and that's what's going to give me the sauciness in my dish. Yeah? And in Spanish cooking, they call this the sofrito. So that's frying off all of the onions, the garlic, and then putting a tomato or capsicum in and cooking it down until it's the base, I guess. It becomes the base of our dish. So in this pan here, just to speed things up a little bit, I'm going to put some oil in. Now the unfortunate thing about eggplant is eggplant loves oil. So when you pop that in there, it's going to suck up a lot of oil. And traditionally we would put, you know, a lot of oil in there, but if we're trying to cook with less oil, we're just going to have to move it around a little bit more and try not to burn it. Now you can see the eggplant here when it's raw, it's really white, and we call this in the kitchen cotton wool, yeah, because a raw eggplant tastes like cotton wool. It's not very nice. So we need to really cook the eggplant out until it softens up and becomes really, really nice. And you'll see it soften up. Happens actually quite quickly in a big pan like this with a small amount. You'll see how it's going translucent and it's getting that soft now. It's no longer got that cotton woolly texture to it. All right, now my griddle pan's going 100 miles an hour. My sofrito is going really nicely, getting some beautiful flavors in there. So that's cooking down nicely. And we want, again, the onion, the tomato, all that stuff in there to change and caramelize and give us lots of flavor. My eggplant, just toss that around the pan. Now this ratatouille or caponata, you could make in a big batch. It will last for, you know, 5 days easy in the fridge. So you can have it on Monday, then have another meal on Thursday, rather than, you know, sort of cooking it fresh every time. And it, like most of these braises, stews, these sort of things, they get a lot better with time. They develop, they're always better heated up the next day. Bolognese sauce heated up the next day is always better than when you freshly make it. Pizza the next day, is that just me or is that everyone? Okay, so we'll let our eggplant cook, our tomatoes cooking nicely. We're going to get our little lamb steaks ready. Now what we want to do with those is we always want to season our meat first. So salt, pepper. Now the reason for seasoning it before we cook it is that the salt will actually stick to the raw meat, and it'll actually bring out some of the juices and caramelize and get that Maillard reaction over the meat. Whereas if I cooked it first then salted it, the salt would just come off. So you get a lot more flavour if you salt it before you cook it. We want to salt it on both sides. And we'll just check our eggplants going nicely there. So our meat's ready to go, our grill's on. We're going to give just a little bit of oil over this meat, just so it doesn't stick to the grill. Now the key with the grill is to have the bars of the grill nice and hot and clean, so that the meat doesn't stick to it. It's hot enough that it seals, and then you can turn. So it's usually for a piece of lamb this small, 1 minute, turn it 45 degrees, 1 minute, turn it over, 1 minute, and that'll cook through because this is a nice hot clean grill and our meat's been lightly oiled. So my soffritto is starting to change colour, so it no longer looks really red and raw, so that could still go a little bit longer. My eggplant, still looking a little bit cotton woolly, but you can see these pieces here that are going that sort of lime green there, that bit there. That's that bit there where it's white, that's where it's cotton woolly and not a nice texture. So that's nearly done. So I will put in the rest of the ingredients in the caponata. We've got some celery, some capsicum. Now they're going to take a little bit longer to cook than the zucchini, so I'm going to put those in, then I'm going to put in my olives and my capers, and that's going to give us that beautiful fresh. We're going to boil this water off anyway, it's going to evaporate out, so it doesn't matter if you add a little bit at this point, just to make sure all those flavours come together. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper to that, and the salt we'll add at the end. Now my lamb, we're just going to pop that onto our grill. Now this is from the rump of the lamb, so it's reasonably lean. You could clean that up a little bit more and get rid of all of that fat. I'm going to cook all the pieces because I like lamb, so does Mark. And it's just going to take 1 minute there, and you can see that's nice and hot. It's not sticking, we're getting lovely charring on there. My caponata is going very nicely in there. I've pre-cut the basil, so beautiful fresh basil from my garden. And so that is essentially a vegetable stew. It's nearly done. My lamb. I just turn it on a 45-degree angle, and you'll see what happens there as we get the little trellises. That means it'll be cooking for 2 minutes on each side, which will be just about enough for that lamb. Thanks, Chef. And we just want that zucchini to soften up. Everything else in there is cooked. And the zucchini is still sort of, raw looking, so we'll just keep that cooking till that softens down. Pretty good. Just, oh, so good. All right, that's really yummy. So that's nearly there. And my lamb. Just turn him over. Now we heated that grill up, And as we put the lamb in, it's dropped a little bit of heat, so I'm just going to pop the heat up again so our lamb is here. Now when we look at our lamb, you should see the blood coming up to the surface. So just there where my tongs are, what's happening is the protein's setting and it's pushing the blood up, or the moisture up. So I know now that is perfectly, well, at the moment medium rare. When I let it rest, that one's going to be nicely medium and all the juices are going to be in the lamb. Worst thing about cooking meat is if you overcook it and you've just got dry meat. If we cook it, rest it, all of that juice is in the meat and we get beautiful flavour and the juice is in our mouth. And by resting it, if we just cut this now, all the juice would flow out. Yep, so by resting it, the juice gets sucked into the meat and that juice goes in our mouth, not on our plate. So that one there needs a little bit longer. This little fatty, he needs a couple bits longer. And now I'm going to serve my caponata. Okay. So the vegetable just in the center of the plate. And it's still fresh and lively looking. Got beautiful aroma, beautiful herbs in there. We've got the acid from our olives and our capers, sweetness from the onion and the tomato cooked down. And that's probably about it. That'll do us. Now my beautiful rested lamb. So you can see that, you know, some of the juices come out, but most of the juice should be sucked up inside that lamb. And that could be garnished with a little bit of fresh basil or whatever. Nice dollop of yogurt on that would be nice as well. But really, that's a beautiful summer dish, perfect to take beside the pool. Nice glass of Pinot and we're all happy.